into my my background and how I turned programmer as a designer, and eventually used a lot of that programming knowledge in the marketing department. Let's see, it's not going forward. All right, so I started off in the Army Reserves. I was actually administration sergeant, so I learned a lot of the how to get things done for all the paperwork for the Army Reserves. I was also the most technical person there, so I was a technical resource for most of the upper officers. I did go to school for graphic design. I worked at an ad agency in Boston for a few years, and I was a production artist at a large mutual fund company in Boston. There I also became a publishing automation specialist because I was the most technical savvy there. I started automating publishing of mutual fund fact sheets. Those are the sheets you get if you have a mutual fund where it just has the performance over the last 5 to 10 years. And actually we had 6 Macintosh computers running 24 hours a day. It would come down from an Oracle database, the data. The data was then transformed into different charts and sheets. The sheets would then either go out to the web and be published or go through a review process until they're fully approved, and then it would either print or go to the web to be shown to the world. My current job, I've worked there for 13 years. I started off as print designer, web designer, and IT. So we had 3 servers and over 35 computers at the time. So I had a fortunate experience of supporting not only sales but the warehouse, shipping, sales, marketing, and all the other departments. Freelance, I've always done some freelance over the years. That's where I picked up web design and coding HTML. I also continue with publishing automation. I'll show you some of that in a little bit. It's pretty neat. From graphic design, I expanded my career into marketing. I'm now the manager of an award-winning marketing department. I've also picked up copywriting skills over the years, and I do manage over 23 trade shows throughout the world. And more marketing automation. That's actually different than publishing automation, where it's more like you're sending out drip campaigns for introducing a product, eventually getting them interested, and then presenting an offer. Or if they buy one type of product, you might send a follow-up on a white paper or videos or even a seminar. In Boston, I was the co-director of the Boston AppleScript Users Group. I did that for a few years. I went to Ringling School of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. Here's some of my artwork just to show you that I can design when I want to. I do some fun things. I love to draw. And then, when I was going to college, the guy I was working for at the time said, well, if you could learn graphic design programs, you'll be able to get a job anywhere. So I was the guy that would buy the FileMaker or Photoshop Bible and end up reading it from cover to spine and remember everything that was in there. So I was actually a resource for a lot of the designers at Ringling when I was there as the go-to person for computer questions, whether they're setting up their computer or just how to run the programs. I was introduced to FileMaker in 1999. I attended a TechSoft workflow automation seminar in Boston. This is what the files looked at the time when they gave you the CD. You see, it's quite old. It was interesting though because their whole system was based upon Canto Cumulus, which was a asset management software, which was very heavily AppleScript. It worked in tandem with FileMaker for content, so you'd actually have Canto with the assets, which would be like pictures, movies, PDFs maybe, and FileMaker would be everything that would describe it, like bulleted copy, name of a product, pricing, quantities, those type of things. And then it combined it with Quark Express 4.1, which was used to actually publish. So it was a whole publishing automation system. It was very interesting. That's how I really didn't know what FileMaker could do at the time. I was really like, okay, Canto's the good thing, and then I'd use FileMaker as an intermediary for Quark Express. So then I started learning FileMaker Pro, and these are some of the things I used. But you can see everything at the time. I think really where I got interested was scriptology. This particular book and CD set was really made it sound like FileMaker could do anything, and that's why I think I really eventually took up FileMaker. And most currently, I watch the FileMaker magazine videos. I pulled down almost everything from the Database Pros website and lynda.com. For me, a FileMaker is like a crossword puzzle. In my free time is when I do most of this stuff, because most of the time during the day I'm doing marketing things, where it's advertisements, promotions, package design, trade show planning, those type of things. But here, I love the challenge of making it work. The usefulness of the result, that excitement that the person gets when they see the final result, and it makes their job that much easier. So that's why FileMaker is just so exciting. And unlimited possibilities. We were talking about this earlier, and it's just that it seems like your imagination is your only limit to what FileMaker can do with all the different connections you can make to different technologies. So for us, in my company, the company I work for, Marketing FileMaker, we do a lot of things with it, actually. There's, I think, 7 current systems that are running. We do different things. Although we don't use this any longer to track projects, we did at one point. We use it for building quick tools for conversion or tracking, something down and dirty, just to get the job done. We use it for housing publishing data. We do newsletters that house all the sales data for some of our distributors around the world, and it'll publish those. We use forms and workflows. A lot of the paper forms that were going around the company now are part of the FileMaker workflow. We use it for managing package components. You might say you have a box that has 7 things that go in it, and all those things need to be tracked to make sure that they're versioned. Even product and manufacturing tracking, we do a lot of that. And the label version tracking. So every time you change something when you're a medical supply company, you really have to make sure that the old version has been obsoleted and the new version is being used. So I'll show you a little bit of that tonight. And product performance. Was the product you launched, is it doing well? Is it doing poorly? Who's buying it? Who's not buying it? Those type of things really mine the data that is in your ERP system. And marketing promotions, if you put something on sale or for BOGO, is it doing what it's supposed to for the correct customers? And lastly, my last big project was a CRM. I won't be showing you that tonight, but a lot of the other things I'll be showing you. But the last 2 or 3 years I've been working on a CRM for the company that replaced our Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So I'm going to show you a few things that I've done in FileMaker just over the years, just to show you how easy it is. This first one is just a simple envelope, but it's funny how this particular envelope, we had to research how to mail into Singapore and the shape. So this, when printed, comes out exactly where it should be on the oversized label or oversized envelope for Singapore. And an assistant would use this essentially and put 10 sheets or 10 envelopes into the printer and just hit print. And you see that every time I do that, it goes 10 more into this. So eventually it tags them that it's printed. This is a very simple concept, but it's huge because now we actually have variable data printing to envelopes. So there's 30 more. And then, although I have a printer here, it would be printing if we had it set up. So eventually it goes through each one 10 at a time until you're complete. It seems pretty simple. This is also one of the areas that I learned really how to combine things with logic. Looking back, you really wouldn't know what you receive because you know how the old adage is garbage in, garbage out for data. So although this is something simple, if the name is here, use it. If not, then don't. Then that's where you put your carriage returns in, or just do an empty space. So this basically collapses. This is a very, I might do a little differently now, but this was quite useful when we built this because there's times where you wouldn't have a country or you would have a country. Now, something that got us a few times is our ERP system wouldn't actually have pricing for everything that you might see. So you can see here this particular product is $9.49, $10.49, and $10.99, and in the system, that's the only way you see it. But we sell it in so many different ways. We sell it 3 by pack, which is actually 12, or 20, or 10. But these numbers aren't in the system anywhere, so someone's got to calculate them. So I built this quick and easy database that when you put your numbers in here, it populates everything here based upon the quantities that are set up. And this goes across many of our product lines. And then I put an index in so that in the catalog there's, say, 60 pages, and this will organize them as you come across each page. So the graphic designer would then print this out in order and just go one page at a time and add pricing. and that way then someone can actually check it, because now it's printed, the designer's not calculating, that's not really their expertise, so this really helps them along. You know, if you change anything here, it'll just update, which is, you know, nice. And then that grabs the data and everything changes, right? So you have your different levels. So the more they buy, the more they save. That's the scenario here. So if they buy 1 pack, 20 packs, or 40 packs, they just get more. And you know, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask at any step of the way. Right now I'm just showing you some simple stuff, and then we'll get the more complex where you know, it gets a little more fun. All right, now we have over 800 labels in our system, and it's quite a bit to track because each one might have different revisions. So thinking of the user, they can either search by product name, a PC SKU, or the exactly SKU number. And I'm just going to look at one tonight, and this is one I just demoed, so it's not exactly how we use it, but it represents the way things would be used. So here I just did an example where there's a Claris FileMaker label, and this is the box that would go on. And you can see a lot of information about it. This is its SKU. It's used for tracking and make sure in quality systems that when you get audited by a quality system, that you can show that you've revved it in certain ways and you've obsoleted the older versions. So in this particular one, you have a print vendor, and you can select which one. Here I just once again, just dummy data. You can give it sizes so you can keep track of what it is. You know, how many, is it in inches, or is it, what's the finished size? Although it's printed on 8.5 by 11, it's actually cut in half at one point. So, and those are the type of information that you want to see. And at 800 labels, you'd actually forget what type of paper they're printed on, or if they were was a coated stock, or any times like a card stock, or an adhesive, or anything that was deadened like that. You can pick your colors. You can pick whether it's bleed. You know, these are a lot of things that are needed to know. If it's on a spool, you know, how it would roll out. Let's see, and the folded height. So you can keep track of a lot of these different things here to make sure that when you do get it, you get it the right way. Because if it comes in a printer that might be a thermal printer, it might roll out the wrong way, and then we'd have to send it back to have it spun a different direction. In this, you can actually click the label history, and you see that there's actually 3 versions of this one. You have Rev 0, Rev 1, and Rev 2, and it just keeps track of what actually happened. For the people that would see this, would be more of our warehouse people, but it's important to know what type of products it's attached to, because this one label would show up here. So as a reference point, this is pulling in from our website, and as we'd sell it. But this is, once again, just an example. So they can say, okay, well, this looks like this, and this is the label I should expect upon it. So our quality system dictates that when a product comes in, it gets inspected to make sure it matches our component inspections. So it has the 2 labels that it might be required, and that it's presented correctly, and it doesn't have, like, say, a blue top when it used to be a white top. So that's part of this labeling system. In here, I built a system that will actually track all the approval forms. So not only can you say, well, show me the label view, but also show me the approval form. And this one is just a dummy that I approved. It would really be a scan that would happen on our in-house copy printer scanner. And the whole system is based upon a key item number, and the key item number ties everything in the database together as a unique key. Going back to the label view, though, if you click here, you actually see something called Zoomify. And what's nice about Zoomify, it's a plugin in Photoshop. So what an automation system, well, the automation system that I built, there'd be times where you really couldn't see the small print on a label. And for some of the more mature people in the company, they had a hard time actually seeing it on the computer. So this file was built with an automation routine that would first open up the approval form or the PDF that would represent the label, and then save it as a zoomable object, like you can see here, right? And then not only would it create this file, but it would also FTP it up to a website. And that's how we're seeing it now, is through a web connection. You see that this is really just is connecting to a URL and showing what's on a live website. And it looks like this. Let's see. I'll show you real quick. So really, it's kind of interesting because it actually created all these different versions of it. See how it's all chopped up? And this is how it allows it to zoom. And this is built into Photoshop. So when you go into Photoshop, now the AppleScript that I'll show you in a little bit actually does it. You basically open up an image. This will just take a second to come up. So let's say, this one, right? So let's say you want to actually turn this into a zoomified object. It was in the export commands. And almost everything in here is scriptable, and I'll explain that in a minute. But right here, Zoomify, and because it's a plugin, I can create an action and save it. So you can change whether it's a white background, it has a navigation built in. I prefer white, and then you can call it this, and the quality you can increase or decrease. You can even get its dimensions, and then open it in the browser when you're done. So we're gonna just go and save it as is, and you'll see in a second it'll open up. So this was the file that we just created. Now the AppleScript actually creates these on the fly and then uploads them to the website so the database works correctly, and the whole system works through a crossing over a lot of different folders, looking in there to see if it's a PDF or an image, and then deciding what to turn. But that's how this is created, right? And once again, it is set up to where what's nice is the AppleScript would tell me whether this is more than one page or not, and if it was, I could increase the page or decrease the page because the data that I collected in the Acrobat phase of the workflow automation told me that it had more than one page. And then also the PDF would be uploaded to the website in addition to the Zoomify that I just showed you, so the person can download it, and actually print it out for themselves if they want. Any questions about that?
Is that happening on the client? The actual Zoomify that's happening where it splices it up?
Well, no. Let's say at night, at the end of a day, you'd run a workflow process, would process everything found in the server, and it might go across like 12 different folders, and it'll look for PDFs and images that haven't been processed. Mm-hmm. And it would turn them into an image that would be shown in the database or the Zoomify.
That's very cool. So you could run this like server side?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's very neat.
There's a concept in AppleScript where it's watched folders. So you can attach an AppleScript to a folder, so anytime the content changes, it actually triggers an open routine, and that open routine can do almost anything you want. Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay.
Oh, maybe it was just me. Sorry. Oh, okay.
So I can go through 1,200 labels in a few hours, and it would create all these different variations in order for this FileMaker Pro solution to be used.
Very cool. Can you? I'm probably getting ahead, but can you grab stuff out of a container field and parse it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost anything that's available, I can show you what the dictionary looks like, and that'll tell us what objects are available. It's an object-oriented language. That's the second phase of the presentation is more the AppleScript how.
All right.
So this is something we use daily to manage our 800 different labels. This next one, I found that as we move to a larger company, that in order to do what, let's say, McDonald's does, and every McDonald's that you go to, you always get that same burger with 2 pickles, onions, 1 squirt of ketchup, 1 squirt of mustard, is essentially work instructions to make sure everyone's trained correctly. But for me, I had over 100 of them in my department. Some things you do once a year, and other times you do them every month or every day. So you really had to document things. So I tell my team, well, if you're going to build a space shuttle, you're not going to build from scratch every time. So even though we just make this catalog once a year, we need to keep track of what we do to it, just so we make sure we didn't miss anything. And there's over 100 different questions we ask when we make our catalog every year to make sure that we didn't miss anything. And that's when it's the gotcha. It's that one thing you missed that really just puts a kink in things. So I built this database to really house work instructions, but the problem that I found was, and it's very simple designed, and most of this stuff is just utility based, and more of my newer stuff is better user design. But the problem is you'd have 100 work instructions, but certain pieces would change. Like say, for instance, you might have a structure change where a manager is no longer the same manager, and they might be listed in these work instructions. Their title might have changed. One process might have to be completely eliminated or changed entirely. So I built a structure that allows you to create a work instruction, but also have the tasks applied to multiple workflows. So if you change one, they update across all of them. Does that make sense? So like say, for instance, on this particular one, you can give it a project client. You had all these different kinds, brochures, flyers, mailings, office, planning, all these different things that you'd want to track, then make sure that you have a workflow in place. And this example that I have here is just a portrait photo. It has 17 tasks. I haven't marked it for it's a quality control document, and if it is, then it gets put into a quality system where each time you make a change, it has to be through this rigorous review process. So this is pretty simple, but I did some exciting things when I did build the database. I thought it was pretty neat. You give it a name, you give it a frequency, so that tells you how often you have to do it, and you can do some planning that way. And you just put some metadata in here to make sure that you explain it correctly. And I did some fun things here. It's a portal. You can do up and down where things move around a bit. Right? If you select on one, you can actually see what the details are here. This one doesn't have any, but like this one particular one has details. So you're actually selecting a portal and then showing portal information here. Coordinate with sales. I'll tell you what that is in a second, but mention the attire, big smile, send an invite via Outlook to managers. It's maybe simple stuff, but it's things that they'll forget to do. This particular one's tied to 2 different tasks, so I know that if I do update it, that it's going to be changed. I can organize my task in a separate window if I touch this here. So this is where I added those. Move by one, I can move top to bottom. So if I wanted to move number 10 to the bottom, I could shoot it down there. I can move back up to number 10. It's simple things, but it's really how I learned how to move things around in a database, by giving them indexes or other types of names. And then this would re-index the tasks. So if you move things around, it was kind of interesting when I did that. I would actually take number 1 and move it to 2.5, and then I'd re-index. That way, if I wanted to move it to 8, I'd do 7.5, and then I'd re-index, and that way it would become number 8. So that was a quick way to use a re-indexing. I added a connection here to where the person index. So you see there's 1, 1, 1, 2, but this is how you assign who gets the task, because there's more than one person in a department. So one person might take the photo, and another person might do the review, like in this example here. So the approvals, you get one person, and then let's see. So this particular time takes 0.25 hours to 0.5 hours. So you can actually collect the time too, and I'll show you why that's important in a second. The system that we use is for projects now is liquidplanner.com, and this is a foundation that allows me to get it into liquidplanner.com pretty easily. All right. So let's say if I want to copy all these tasks right here to push it into an online task or project management system, I'd use a copy liquid planner text. And then here's where it gives you your primary designee and your first reviewer. So these essentially are the 1, 2s, and 3s. So if I put names in here, and it'll get assigned to each one of these tasks based upon whether it's a 1, 2, or 3, which is good because then when you push it to your project management system, that it gets assigned automatically. And what I found is that a lot of times it's always the same person reviewing these things, so you'd have a default reviewer, right? So I'm going to cancel this for a second. So let's see if there's a default reviewer in here. Yeah, so here you see these are the default reviewers. So those will automatically fall into the system. You can override them if you put a reviewer number. All right, so I'm going to copy the liquid planner task. I'm going to give it 2 people. And let's just say this is Chris. I hit OK. And it's going to copy to the text board this text right here. And you can see it's delimited by commas. And the project management system that I use basically defines the name of the project first, who it's assigned to, and then it'll also give it an estimated time. And then the project management system will do the Gantt chart to make sure everything's connected correctly. But this is a good way to make sure that you do the same projects the same way every time. Essentially that idea of the same burger at every location in the world for McDonald's. It's a pretty simple database. I did it a few years ago, but same idea here. If I change something, I'll get an error saying, warning, this task has 1 project related to it. If it has more than 1, I just have to know that if I change it, it's going to go across all the different projects, and you just have to make sure that that's what you want to do. So then it'll let me, finally actually edit it. Right. Minor stuff, but it was things that became quite useful in building, over 100 different work instructions. This next one, promotions. We have quite a bit of promotions. We have a flyer that goes out every month to US, Canada, and Puerto Rico. Let's see. I'll delete these real quick. All right, so there's 2 different ways I built the reporting structure on promotions. You can do it across multiple tables to where you say, well, this one particular product sold $10 this month and $12 the next and $14 the next month, and then have a parent table that would then total all those values for, say, a yearly total, and then you'd roll it up to a group total where it'd be multiple products, and then maybe even a category total, which would even roll it up. And that may sound confusing, so let's just explain what I did. I did 2 ways. I did one where it all adds up through related tables, and then a SQL version. And the SQL version, although it works faster, I had to build a structuring system in order to actually build everything together, because you had to make sure that those structures stayed in place and that you totaled your categories correctly. This takes a little bit of time to reindex, but this is really like the top level of our systems, right? So just for example, I just put different type of product categories here, and you see that it tells you actually a lot, that there is an index, like this particular one is an A product or a B product, and we classify things that way. And here we have a sales, in order, so this report's actually sorted by sales. And here you can see that audio is actually more profitable than computers. So that you have a sales profit index. So although you might think your best-selling thing makes the most money for your company, it might not always be the case. So we look at that. We'd also look at like a rolling 12-month calendar compared to the last 13 to 24 months and the difference between the ones. And all these numbers are just numbers I put in there for example. And then the year-to-date, is it up or down compared to prior year-to-date? And then you see that we have growth in phones and growth in computers, but we're down in appliances and down in accessories, right? And then plus or minus last year. So you have your rolling calendar over here, your year-to-dates, and then a year-over-year, right? And a sales run rate. So if you were to chop this 5 months into 12 months, this is what your run rate would be. Right now that's the average. So. Then you get your margins, and it's like what kind of margins you're getting on these products. And part of overall sales, like, well, this is only 3% of my overall sales, or this is 0.5%, so is it really that much? Does it really mean that much to me? And then international and domestic, like, well, if you were to chop these things into what channels your customers buy in, what would you do, right? So it seems like this one is really big in domestic, but not so big in international. And then you have some flip-flops, so you really don't know who's buying what until you take a deep dive into where things are being sold. We have our quantities. We actually have a lot of these sold, right? And then the return rates, like you see we have some really low return rates, so which is good. It tells you that the product is well received, but you're not telling enough new people about it, right? So if you had a 20%, oh, actually this is the reorder rate. So you have, that's what I meant, is on a reorder rate, 85% of the time someone reorders it. It means it's a good product, and that at least 15% of the people know about it that are new. Right? Let's see. And then the SKUs, like this particular one has 76 SKUs, and the average SKU cost or in sales does $9,000. Right? Or this one has 26 and it does 21,000. So per SKUs, the overhead for the company is a lot less here because per SKU is 21,000, and here's the overhead for 76 different products at $9,000 SKU. So although your company might think that, hey, let's sell 1 million widgets, it might not be as profitable when you actually chop it up. So this is really like a top-level overview. So what kind of TVs are in here? So I put this little arrow, and now it's expanded to the 11 TVs in the category, and then all the same numbers you saw before, but specific to, and if it's red, it pops up here, right? And you can sort these different ways. You can refine your search if you want. This is something, right? So it's on the fly sorting and finding. I thought that was kind of cool, so I put that in there, right? Let me go back for a second. So there's actually four levels. So let's say you start with TVs, and then you have 11 different TVs, all the same type of information. There's 38 SKUs in this. So here's really where you get the SKU count. Your reorder rate, your return rate, and then first time orders too. It's not populated today, but what you'd want is well, when you do have a customer for the first time, what should you offer them? So if you knew your most popular products for new customers, this would give you the list of the most popular products. So at this level, we went down from a catalog section to a group level. So it may encompass 6, 7 different products at a time. And then if you take a deeper dive even further, you get down to the what we call, these are price codes, and then the products, right? You can see that this one product in this group, TV1, is actually 87%. So this could mean that you actually sold some adapters with it, and it was named the same thing, but primarily the very top one is the biggest part of the group, and then how everything breaks down. And everything you saw on the previous screen you also see here too. I'll show you why it's important to collect the page number in the catalog, because we have a 200-page catalog, so it's nice to know where your products are. And this is really built on a drill down, so I learned how to really select through different portals. So all these are different portals. If I select here, I'm going to expand a bit, and I select on this one, you see that now it shows me the details about that, but still keeps me here for the products that are selected. So I can change these if I want. All right, and it'll show me. This chart right here is being ran by the final numbers that when you drill down to the item history. If you go down all the way down to this item history, which is this arrow here, you see that all the different months that popped up and the margin. So you have margins, profit, and this is running from that. It's a 2-month running one. So this is really how we tell which, down to the SKU, because we have over 10,000 of them, which one's really working for us and which one isn't. Any questions?
What tables do you have in this?
Oh, there's quite a few. I pulled some in from our ERP system, and then I massaged the data to categorize and summarize.
Okay.
See, the whole point of this was to make sure you wouldn't have to rerun the reports every month.
Right.
So you summarize them and then just hold them. So it was more of like a data warehouse.
Right. So you're rolling them up and caching the values as opposed
Yeah,
to summarizing them on the fly, which would probably take forever in this kind of volume, right?
right. Yeah, because
Yeah.
our sales table has 3+ million rows of data in it,
Wow.
so it does take quite some time. So I structured this one a little differently. Now, if you go to the SQL version, you see that it's much more refined, but it did allow me to do our different channels, on how things are broken, because there's 6 different main channels, and you see that instead of just the domestic and international, you actually have a few different domestics and a few different internationals, right? So you automatically see whether it's up or down. If it's red, it's down, and tells you how much it's down. So it's really, at a glance, you know that this entire category, although it's up in domestic, it is down 20% in the international dealer, right? So just at a glance, you know where your problem area is. And in here, you can drill down as well. Actually, let's see, I go back, which brings you to this page. So you see all your different products, and it would select those specifically. So then you can see where your products are having problems. Like, channel 4, you're actually down, 20%, and it tells you by hovering over it, how much is down. This was all SQL driven, which was kind of cool because I actually did quite a bit of custom functions. I actually have 92 of them. Let's see, so I mean, it seems simple enough, but I've been doing a lot more SQL lately. So you pass it basically the product group, the start and end date, and then you grab the table that and a summary field, and then whether the date range is here as the start date and the end date, and then if there's a rep attached to it. And then this actually is an interesting way. I did like a list of reps. So the rep numbers would all be in here in a sales end clause. And it results in a number. I did wrap that around if this doesn't come through as a real number, it actually gets called by this one first, then it calls the core. And then it just basically says that if I didn't get anything from the result, I returned 0. So I actually did fill the field, so it does populate all the charts, and it does populate the reports correctly, because an empty field really isn't good for calculating against when doing those things. So, this was actually huge because we use it for many different things, not only for how the products are doing, but I also have similar reports that do promotions. If something's very popular on a BOGO, you buy 5, get 1 free, or if something's stale, or if you buy one product, get another product free. This is the same type of reporting I use across the board. And we do some crazy things too, like we have an internal calendar which isn't exactly the same as the normal calendar. So I have to actually change each one of those every time I do a report based upon the corporate calendar. Good? All right. So the second part of the demo, programming. Although I went to school for graphic design, I always have a technical hat on my head. You can do a lot of different things. You can start off with where I started was application actions, and for those who might know Photoshop or macros or like Photoshop has this palette that it's an actions palette. Let's see, Windows actions. And I'll show you one that, like, these are the ones that we use down here, right? Cover page shadow, and you can record your action and just play it over and over again. You can apply a keyboard shortcut to it, which will, I really didn't realize the power of that until I was in a design class, and this one professor kept on saying, do this over and over and over again, and I kept on doing it manually and manually and manually, and finally he's like, well, who's winning, who's winning? And it was the guys that had recorded the first time as an action, and they just kept on pushing play, right, because it was recorded at that point. So these really just record it. You have a start, a stop, and a play, and then you can categorize them into tables. I mean, things like a vignette, a wood frame, a cast shadow, let's say we go back to this Claris box, right? Basically, all you gotta do is hit a little play button, and you get a result. Well, maybe not, right? Let's say wooden frame. Oh, so you go. Well, this is it. For example, so I'll go back to my demo because I have something that works.
So those are like scripts, but for Photoshop, right?
Yeah, it's your recorded steps. So if you take 17 steps to do something, including saving or closing windows, it'll do those too.
Sure.
So, let's say I just record this, and then I do a simple crop. Oh, that's why. It didn't have the right one. Okay, then I hit stop, and then I revert the document. So then I go, it didn't record it, did it? Well, I guess I should stick with my plan.
I'm sorry.
No problem. But basically, you just record it and it follows.
So it's not like, it's different from scripts in that you're not writing the steps. You're just recording the steps. It's like recording a macro in Excel or something like that.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Last time I used Photoshop, I think was version 2.5.
No. Yeah, it's quite like Excel because Excel's so big, and so is Photoshop. It really takes a lot to learn it. So from application actions, you can do a lot of different things. The next phase I went into was quick keys, was also recording, but across your entire computer, so you could jump between your file management system to Excel to Word, and it'd grab each step of the way, right? And then AppleScript, I'll show you a little bit of that. Unix shell scripting, I dabbled that a little bit, and what's nice is AppleScript can call Unix shells. HTML, some of the coding I've done. JavaScript, Cold Fusion, our current website's Cold Fusion, and our programmer left, so I have to support that. So I do some minor Cold Fusion programming. SQL, it's a form of programming. You can step through things. And of course, my current passion is the FileMaker scripting. What is AppleScript though? This was interesting to me when they called it inter-application communication, because really you're talking between applications, and it's almost like someone going around a company and stopping first at accounting and then the sales. It was created in the events, but the real power is that AppleScript is this connection of supported program and the combined result. So it's like a synergy between applications. And you can see here, like, JavaScript's very obtuse. It's kind of hard to read at times, and you're really not sure what's going on. But this same pattern here can be done in AppleScript, a very natural language. Repeat with I from 1 to 5. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And then display the dialog, so you'll see the increment. Every time it changes, you'll see the change. And then end repeat, and you're done. The exciting part for me, though, is that I can get data anywhere, really, from AppleScript. I can get it from text files, ODBC connections, and in the early days, I just really didn't know all the tools, so I'd use AppleScript to connect to a program that could call SQL, and then I'd parse the data as a result into FileMaker because I really didn't understand the ODBC connections and the imports. But as I learned, I eventually moved more and more stuff over to FileMaker. You can scrape web pages. There's some really interesting tools to do that. You can connect to web services and do different SOAP calls. So you're really talking to a service and they send it back to you. You can get the weather, for instance. You can get the time, the temperature. You can get file information, like when it was created, when it was modified, the size of the file, where it's located. You can do document content, and I'll show you that in a second, where you can actually go through and open a document and grab things out of it, and then put those in your FileMaker Pro database. You can do environmental things. You can say, well, if so-and-so is on a network, you can see them, so do a certain thing. Or if a file exists, a folder exists, Sometimes in a workflow, you'll see that something's dropped off somewhere, and like say a county had finished a project, so they dumped in all their scans into a folder. You can actually look for those environmental changes. And interface mining. This is something that actually I started before AppleScript, was where you literally act like you're a person, and you click here at certain coordinates, and you might copy and paste and really deal with the front end part of the computer, if that makes sense, as opposed to doing a programming interface where you actually talk to the program through code. And there's many ways to trigger an AppleScript, right? You have quick keys, which is really a macro program across all your applications. You have AppleScript editor, which allows you to write them. Terminal. Automator is kind of a more simpler version on how to use AppleScript. Xcode, which you can actually use to compile full-fledged programs and run them on the Mac. And of course, FileMaker can also trigger AppleScripts. Now for the demo, exciting stuff, right? Now I'm going to show you something I did actually over 13 years ago now. This little program here, if you can see it, is actually a let's see, it's an AppleScript. It's pretty simple. It says, tell me where my path is, tell me all the files that that are movies, .move, and then open them and play them at a certain speed. I'm going to speed them up to 2 times the rate because 13 years ago computers ran much slower, so in order to show the demo. And you see it just activates it, it opens a file here, it gives a movie name, and then the document, it says turn off the looping, and then wait until it's done, and then close it out, close the window. It's pretty simple. So when I run it, it's going to run these 3 movies in here. And watch very carefully, because this is some of the automation stuff I did, and I'll explain it as we go. The first from text files and literally measuring and creating boxes and different file types. So you see how it picks up a file on the left, it then turns it into a chart based upon which folder it's in. And this is something that all those 13 years ago, it still ran today. They couldn't find a better replacement for it, and this is all done in Adobe Illustrator. You see how fast it runs. I mean, if I didn't turn on the visual aspect of this, you wouldn't even see it running. It runs so fast. And I'm literally, measuring each distance between these at the bottom of these little tab or labels. I built the mountain all through measuring the data. And there's maybe 7 or 8 different bar charts or charts that we'd use. See, this is a really wide one. The legend where it's placed, it might be moved over a little bit if the words are much larger. So I grab the font, I center it over the bars, and if it's too big of a bar, I'll move it inside the bar. So all those different type of logical things. And I had 6 computers running this 24 hours a day, and it would do more. It would do charts, it would do the actual sheets themselves. But it's kind of mesmerizing because it's neat because each data is differently. I did this for MFS Investment Management in Boston. Now, not every process can be totally automated. So you look at this particular bar pie chart here. This one actually needs cleanup by a designer. So you get a process as far as long as you can. If you have it 95% automated, it is much better than not having it automated pieces until you can fully automate it. This one is just a demo on what can be done because I'm showing you charts. Now basically this is reading through a bunch of folders of AppleScripts. And then the left-hand side, it's building a table of contents, essentially. On the right-hand side, you're going to start seeing it document my AppleScripts, right? And it's all doing it based upon what it finds. So it'll literally go through each. It'll turn everything to the left of the colon bold, and then style things, and then put numbers so you can read the code. And this is really from my manager. I had to make sure the only person there that AppleScript. When it was updated, what version it is, and you see these are all from the year 2000s, quite some time ago. But they're still using it today. What's nice about AppleScript is it's a very logical program. You can have it pretty much figure out anything that the human could with enough trials. So with it, you'd run through all your worst case scenarios, and you try to spec those out in the program that you wanted. But as more and more things, the anomalies come up, you then program for them. So over the course of time, it would be more and more automated, or at least fully. Right. Some of them are just simple Apple scripts, but they need to be documented. And then even the location of the file, that's kind of neat. The size, what kind of script it is, it compiles as an application, because Apple scripts can be applications, so you just have to save them a different way.
This is absolutely mesmerizing. I could watch this all day. We need this to document our system.
Yeah, isn't it great? I literally have hundreds of scripts I've created over the years for all different scripts. If I can automate it, I automate it.
Man, can it make me breakfast? Goodness.
This will finish up, and I'll see some more charts. So this, if you go to emarketer.com, everything on their website, these are a little more complex. They still use these scripts today over 10 years later. But you see, they build different kinds. So first you'll see it has details at the bottom, then it removes it. It saves it as a JPEG, it saves it as an EPS, it saves it as a PDF as well. And it's very smart because you'll see where it'll move the white numbers in, and it's constantly measuring things. So as you see the header that goes across, you'll see that it's actually measuring each word so that it knows exactly when to break the text and when not to. Because the limitations of the program, see, it's measuring each one now, it totals them all and then breaks it, right? It's measuring everything here, and then it builds the chart. So it actually measures everything first, and then it builds the whole scenario. And it's logical. It'll put a note in there if the note exists. It'll put the footnote for the year if it exists. It's very very flexible. But the company, all they do is they sell data. So they had 9 different full-time graphic designers doing these charts, and now there's 2. So it eliminated the majority of the workforce. Which isn't a good thing. A designer doesn't want to do this stuff anyways. You do 300 charts in a day. You really want to go out and design a brochure at that point, or a logo.
Yeah, this is working smart, not hard, which is always a better thing.
Yeah. The thing is, there are so many different types of charts, even within one. You'd see that here you're actually doing whether in the brackets is plus or up or percentage, and you might have more in the legend, you might have less in the legend. But yeah, this is almost done. And here's it's multiple different kind of charts. You see the grouped bar charts. And it's kind of cool. It drops in the bars behind there, right? But what this allows you to do is really add a value to your customers or your internal customers to provide data in such a way where it would take too much time to do these manually. And it's very visual. Like this one's a totally different type of chart. It's only text, but that's the type of things that they sold. See, it just measures everything. Now this is a columned text-only chart. See, it's measuring everything first, and then it drops it in. I mean, I spent hours on how to program these things. Right, and then you see how it insets it. If the word's too long, then it moves the column over. This company actually used a FileMaker Pro database to manage everything. So in order for them to proof it, they'd push it back into the FileMaker Pro database, and then they'd rerun it if they have to. Like this is yet another version of it, right? And here you have some percentages, and you have some dollars, and you have just some numbers. So you really had to handle all these different types because sometimes that percentage sign might mess up exactly how it's aligned. And see in the background it has a GIF, an EPS, and a JPEG. So I think that was it's pretty cool stuff. Now, for me, the next one was a very just simple one to show you on how I used AppleScript in the beginning to understand my databases better. You know, just a simple thing here. This basically just changes cell values for you. You would think that's kind of easy, but maybe you want to be really specific. So if you run this, it first prompts you to do what database do you want to target. So it'll list your databases. So basically I'm stepping through what FileMaker has open, and you really have access to almost everything. I'll show you that in a second. You can pick the table that you want to look at, and this is just a demo, so very simple. And I want to basically choose the cell I want to change the value in. I'm going to change the field 2 to anything I want. So I can either do all records or just the found set, right? And then this is very quick. So watch, I'll just do multiple 2s just so you see, right? And you see everything and it's done, right? It was just 10 records, but still, it changed them all. So you can do that actually pretty quickly. You know, you can run it again, just like that. All records, and then you're back normal again. It's extremely fast, very flexible. This is one thing I used to use it for, is just to change values really quickly, but it would allow me to delve into it. I wouldn't have to go through the interface. Maybe say it was a table you just really use for back-end system work. This next one is just compare the fields of 2 tables. Let's say you've been working on it and you're moving everything over to a future table, and you're like, well, wait a minute, I might not have all the fields that I need. So this does the same thing. It just does a comparison of the fields, and it's only I don't know how many lines it is. There's a few. Show line numbers. Show line numbers. So 171 lines. I mean, I've done probably scripts that are in the 15 to 20,000. So but that's with spaces and everything. All right. So when you run through this one, go ahead.
So sorry, this all works directly on the FileMaker data, like the back end of it. Yeah, you're not using. I mean, some of this stuff could be done with SQL, or is this specific to FileMaker?
So FileMaker allows you to access its tables a few different ways, right? One through the interface, one through like a SQL command, maybe through an ODBC connection, through a secondary source. AppleScript is actually talking through a conduit, basically in the back end. It's not the front end, specifically through code. So, you know, like here, I'm getting a list of every name of every database, right? And then I'm going to say, well, give me all the table names of the database that I chose. That's this one, right? So then when I go through here, I'm going to repeat through what I found. Here's the table name, right? And then I'm going to do a comparison. If it's, you know, the master table, if item number exists, then add it, basically. And then here I get a name of every cell. See, so this is and then a slave. So I got a master list and a slave list. So literally, you're talking. These are objects. So you have your database objects, your application object, and you can name things kind of indirectly or directly. You can say, well, tell database 1, or tell database FileMaker Pro, you know, specifically. It really depends how you want. And then the windows. Go ahead.
Is this specifically an IDE just for AppleScript, or is it related to FileMaker? I'm sorry, I'm kind of ignorant on AppleScript. I'm trying to catch up here.
It's a program that allows you to manipulate and access almost all aspects of FileMaker. I'll show you some more ways you can use it. I was just showing you how you can access a little bit of the data, right? So
okay.
If I run this one, it's going to compare 2 tables for me. So I'm going to pick the current database. I'm going to pick the 2 tables that I have, and then I'm going to say, well, which one's the master? I'm going to pick the first one's the master, and I'm going to compare it against the second one, right? So here in the result window, I say field 2 is not in table DB2. And if I want to expand these, I can see, well, that's my list, right? So I can say, okay, that's right. So if I want to, I go over and I'll add field 2 if I really want to move from one table. And you could do this with, say, 2 different databases. You know, there's some bigger programs out there that really do comparisons, but for down and dirty, hey, which one's missing? You know, you can even tell what kind of field type it is, how many records you have. It's really pretty flexible. So in there, so you have your 2 fields. You have 4 and 1, 10 records, right? So that's just a foundational thing I wanted to show you. Say, well, look, you can target fields and tables and windows specifically. All right. All right, so this next one, I'm going to use a little bit of Quark and FileMaker. So this table holds pricing, basically, right? Different levels and stuff. And then this holds what would be Quark Express. So let's say we have a 200-page document. Your designers are going through and they're updating all the pricing, and they're doing it manually. It'll take them forever, right? So if you have the pricing somewhere, you should be able to get it into the system. So the way this particular script works is you select an item number in a text box. You notice that this one has 2. That's why I showed it differently. First, you select this one. I put some flat numbers in here. And because this works so fast, I had to slow it down. So now I'm going to go over and open the script. This script's a little larger because it does first it goes in the FileMaker and does a find, gets the data that it found, and then goes over to Quark Express. You see it's quite a big script. So that's 1200, right? So when I run this script, just by hitting execute or Command R, you see that it changed the first one to 301.75 and then this one to 298.50. Because it researched it, it went over here first to FileMaker and opened up this particular item number and found it. It's found of one of, that's how many pricing categories we have. You can see it's just insane, right? So if you go all the way to the top here, first it goes to Quark Express. It gets to the clipboard. You could either do it one of 2 ways. If there's nothing in the clipboard, then it takes what is actually selected. So the scenario was that if all the item numbers are in a different text field, you can see there's a little outline here for a text field. You first select one and then copy and paste, right? And then run it. It would find it. It would find your different pricing, and then it would push it into Quark. So you go over here to this one, right? You select it, and because there's 2 different pricing books, right here, you do run, it changed it, I slowed it down a bit, here comes the other one, right? And then there's a bug where it kills this one, but when I select that and I run it again, it'll fix that one and it'll also fix the next one, see? So it's pulling in pricing, and it's very quick to go through a 200-page document, and just when you have this script attached to a quick keys to where you might do Command-Shift-3 and then that would trigger this particular script to run into Quark. So you guys follow me? Yeah? All right, so that's just one of the ways that we use a combination of holding data in FileMaker and pushing it over to a published document to get the data out, right? Because it's only so good in FileMaker, but if you want to print something, you need the most up-to-date data. And you could make this even more sophisticated to where you name these text boxes a specific thing, and then it looks for a specific item number. Then it changes the price for you. So it can literally search through each text to exactly find. I mean, you can do formatting like this, the dollar symbol. It's superscript. You can superscript that if you want, right? All right, so I'm gonna close that out. Any questions on that one?
Yeah, what is a Quark Express?
Okay, so Quark Express is a page layout program, almost like Adobe InDesign. So if you were to build a newsletter, a brochure, a flyer, you'd use Quark Express.
Okay, and this is something the company you work for uses pretty heavily.
We're actually moved out of Quark.
Oh, okay.
Now we're in InDesign.
All right, it's better, I guess, newer stuff.
Yeah. All right, I'll show you something in a second that it makes more sense of what it is. I was just showing you the pricing and how, it would be you'd see pictures and bullets and copy and all those things, page numbers.
Right, yeah, all the important things there to make it look good.
So we did the pricing. All right. Okay, so now sometimes what I'll do is I'll just use a template out of FileMaker, because if it has the main structure of what I need, I'm not going to build a whole system just for something I need to hold information. So I basically use one of their templates, and I built this document to hold images. And right now there's nothing in it, and that's on purpose, right? So first we're going to create something. All right. So I downloaded the newest version of FileMaker's instructions on how to set FileMaker up. So what this is going to do, it's going to create little thumbnails of that PDF, right? So let's see. It's one of these. It's going to do something like this. It's going to grab one of these. It's going to create little thumbnails for it, right? This is a PDF I downloaded today, and it's going to go through each page and create a thumbnail. So you have a reference in a database because you don't want to put the full thing there. You really want to put something that's only usable.
Okay.
Right, so you'll run this, and you'll see here that it's actually creating in Photoshop different size thumbnails for use in a database, and it's putting a shadow behind them really pretty quickly, saving it in a specific folder. It's using this particular action here to set a style of a shadow, scale 100% drop shadow with a multiplier, CMYK color, opacity, and literally it'll go through a 100-page document in under a minute. It's pretty quick.
So then you can then tie this to
an FTP program and push it to a website.
Man, I see what you mean about your automatic publishing sort of thing. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Gotta love tying in FTP. That is a lot of fun. So this right now is applying, it's creating thumbnails? Is that what you said? Just different sized images? Okay.
Yeah.
And is it putting them locally on your hard drive right now? Ah, okay.
Right now it is, yeah.
So you'll create staging
stations.
And then move them out to a
live site. So here it just finished all those, and I forget how many files it was, but it's still pretty neat. All right, so now that we have those in there, right, so now we've created some images. Now we need to put them into a database, right? So this is the second part. And what you do, you string these scripts along. I chopped them up just so you can see, really how. And this particular one, you can actually go through hundreds of folders looking for very specific things. Like, for instance, all these different types of file types. And based upon which file type you might find, you might do a different script. So that's when you're if something is true, then do this or do that. And then you could do things where you try. If there's an error, then you could do something else. So you can really be responsive to all the different environmental changes. I mean, I could literally walk up and move a folder out of here, and the script would stop, right? Unless you changed it. And then in AppleScript, you can do subroutines, where this is actually like a subroutine to the system, almost like a function, right? So you call this function, you pass a variable, and it goes into here, then it kicks out what's ever left. But this was a process, so it didn't return anything. You're telling the Finder system to locate a file name, a modification date, and a path, and then you're building a path, right? And then here you're even doing a short date, right? You're grabbing a date from the file. You're pulling the year out, and then let's see. Then you're going over here to FileMaker Pro, talking specifically to this database here, and specifically to this table. You're going to try to find it currently, because this is a smart system. It's only going to add what has to be added, because there's a lot of resource overhead on building something twice, right? So then then you'd add it. All right, so let's see what this does. All right, so here it's loading images that we just created into this database.
So this is opposed to having a data entry person kind of sit there and upload these one by one individually, creating records.
Yeah, and it gives you more control than FileMaker has a built-in imported images, but it allows you to give more data. So you can do, like you want to add this when you do it, so you know where to go back into the file system to get it. You can chop things up if there's a label number attached to it. You can parse your data to make sure you get exactly what you want. So when you push it to your FileMaker databases, you might show an image one place, but have the PDF available for opening in another place. It's really pretty flexible.
Okay.
So that added 18 images pretty quickly. And you see that some say L, those are actually larger than the other ones. So if you have a larger layout in FileMaker that you might want to use, you might use that image. So the real thing about this is workflows. You can build an entire workflow with AppleScript and give your users in FileMaker much more data, right? And images, actually see what they're working on. So let's say they just finished up a statement or they get a payment in accounting. They can scan it in, and a folder might pick it up, and you could really theoretically OCR it and then pull things from the document itself and then push it into a database, right? So it can be a complete workflow. Now, earlier I mentioned a way to really, let's see. Now this is what FileMaker is really for. This is a template I pulled down, but you see that it's really a brochure, right? So it has all these different text fields, and then what I wanted to do was make sure I went through this entire document and looked for certain things, right? So let's say the script opens this up, and then we open up an indexing program. So what this is going to do is basically grab every item number in that document and tell me what page it's on. So the only goal is to, one, identify where an item number is in a 200-page, let's say, catalog, which is pretty important if you really want to know, where it is. So this one will walk through each text box, and it uses a unique parsing routine that I'll show you the results on in order to get out an item number, and it's pretty fast. So I'm going to run it, and we'll see what happens. And it literally goes through each text box, and you see here it's built in. That's one. I have a delay right now, so it slows down, but it puts bullets in front and back of every word. So then you can pull it out uniquely, because some words are contained in other words. So in order to make sure that you specifically get technology when you're looking for tech, that's what you'd want to do. So see how it keeps track of the page number, and then as the page number will change, it was a nice little trick that I found out in order really to identify a specific item number, was by parsing it this way. And you could do things too, like every place that you have a web address or any type of thing that you might want to index, right? So that was pretty quick. It was only 2 pages, but you could go through a 200-page document pretty quickly to index everything, and then you connect this, say the item number is a unique key, over to a system that tells your sales reps what page number it's on. Actually, that's the last part of the demo I have, unless you have specific questions on how the Apple scripts work, or we could actually look at, we could actually open up a dictionary. So here's FileMaker, and this is its dictionary. So AppleScript gives you a dictionary. You have classes. These are literally like objects. So you have your application, you have a cell, and each one of these things has elements you can grab from it, right? So a database has a layout, a table, and then as you get down to the document, you have more things, like a window. Then you get down to a field, you have a cell or repetition, so if it has a repeating field, you can get that too. But these are all the different things, like what kind of class is it, and then if you click here, it'll tell you what kind of classes is available. And here's all your classes. So really, it's an object-based language.
And I missed this. Where did you find this dictionary?
Okay, so in AppleScript, you can go to open a dictionary.
Right.
And any open application.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Apple Maker providing it separate.
It's attached to it.
Oh, okay.
It's almost like how those new printers will auto-connect when the data information's in the printer and it just connects it.
Right.
Same way.
Well, that's good. It's not just one more specific help file that I can never find. So.
Right. And then these are some commands you can quit, redo, save, show, sort, undo, cut, delete. close, copy. So that all these commands you can do, and it tells you even how to format them. So set the result to the class of the type class. It seems kind of strange, but once you get into it, it's pretty sensible.
I think part of what's interesting to me is I've always encountered AppleScript being run from FileMaker as a script step. You know, you get to a certain point, like for instance, where you were gathering up files and then creating records in FileMaker for them. The sort of example I've seen before is I already have the record in FileMaker, now get me the modification date and the creation date and so forth from the related files. So this is definitely turning that on its head, where you're using AppleScript to run FileMaker instead of FileMaker to run AppleScript.
Yeah.
And it's just a totally different angle to come at it. It's very interesting.
And you could have AppleScripts call AppleScripts, or do a do script in FileMaker and wait for a response. So you have that connection and verification that something happened.
Yeah, I think that was the same thing that was blowing my mind. Is I'm used to the perform AppleScript script step, and even then I've done almost nothing with it. You know, this is better.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see someone coming from outside of FileMaker for once, and I can see why you did that. You know, it's like this is your master scripting engine. You know, this is what you rely on to talk to multiple applications. You know, not just FileMaker. I'm used to going, I'm in FileMaker, now how do I talk to this other guy? You know what I mean? So
right.
It's you're outside of that box, I guess.
And the more I'm into this, the more I start using FileMaker. You know, it's so extensible.
Yeah, FileMaker is really cool. It does so much, including the AppleScript stuff, which is very helpful. How much of that do you use? Do you ever use the perform AppleScript script steps from within FileMaker scripting engine? Not a real need. You go outside and you create an AppleScript file and it does everything you want.
Well, the majority of my users are on PC. So I usually run these processes at night. The data's ready for them in the morning, or does that make sense?
That's you're stumbling upon another thing that was really always tough for me in AppleScript. It's AppleScript. There is no Microsoft component, Windows component, whatever. So it's like you run all these on an Apple server or something, and then pass the results to the Windows computers. How does that work?
So if you have FileMaker on the Mac and you run, let's say, a Mac Mini at night as a server, you could just have it on a cycle. So every PM it runs. I have ran an RDC connection to where I'd open a window on a PC, actually click through coordinates, hit a return button, and then a select and a save.
Wow. So you found a way. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's so cool. I wish it was cross-platform. You know, I wish this sort of scripting. But I mean, you can do like batch scripts and things like that, and I think both languages, right? Both Windows and Mac.
Yeah.
But not quite as easy or fun, in my opinion. You know.
Yeah. Like if you're a surgeon, if you're a doctor, you give medicine. So this is my tool. I know it.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to learn too than writing a shell script. I did not like that experience, but learning AppleScript was like, oh man, this is almost like English. I can tell FileMaker to do my bidding. But seeing this list of stuff to do is going to be fun to play with. So I see all your objects. Yeah, I'm going to have to download this script debugger program and check this out.
Well, it comes with it automatically.
Does it?
So I'll show you where it is. Let's see. In your utilities program, there's, let's see.
I did a little, let's see. What do they call that thing? Spotlight search for it, but was unable.
There you go. So script editor in your utilities program is the basic editor. It does pretty much everything.
Script debugger, but script debugger is a paid program.
You like it a little bit better?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can show you. This is a real one that actually prints newsletters. Something
simple. Just you can count the words in the document. I use it to pull down files from websites that I have, right?
Okay. Okay.
So let's say you want to go across a website and hit every URL and only pull down movies. You can do that.
Okay. I can see. Yeah, I can see why that would be useful. Like, what do they call that? Crawling website sort of thing.
Yeah. Right.
Very cool, man. I am still a bit blown away. I'm trying to catch up to all the things that I just saw, all these different programs, and it's a good thing. You know, if I understood every bit of everything you just did, then yeah, I didn't learn anything new today, but I learned a lot of something new today. So there's so much going on.
Yeah, that's what's exciting about it. It's like I see that you guys last few episodes were phenomenal, right? Like you guys are really on the cutting edge on building some really sophisticated systems.
Yeah.
I'm not quite there on the FileMaker, but I've done as the equivalent in AppleScript over the years, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you've gotten super deep into AppleScript as we've gotten into FileMaker, especially Chris. He gets into all reaches of FileMaker pretty much. But yeah, as a Windows user, right? So maybe that's why we're happy to have an AppleScripter here, right? Because I'm pretty much the Mac guy here, but I don't know too much about AppleScript. So did you learn this from a book? Did you read a book about AppleScript, or did you research it online?
Well, when I was at the mutual fund company, there was 10 of us in the production. There was designers who actually designed everything to make it look nice, and then the production artists would apply it to, say, a 40-page document when the designers only gave you 2 pages. The manager at the time really wanted to automate those things, so I started learning because I was the most technical in there. Just quick keys and scripting the interface. That got me to a certain point, and then I went to that seminar that I talked about earlier. And then my company sent me all the way to Apple's headquarters, where I actually had, was it 3 days on AppleScript specifically.
Wow! So you went to the heartland, the motherland, yeah. Now soon to be the mothership, or whatever that campus they're building is.
We'll see that in space.
Yeah, seriously, that's the next trick. I think we've gone to general discussion now. So usually I kill the recording, but we can still talk. So